On his journey around the world, Mark Twain visited Varanasi and said, "Benaras is older than history, older than tradition, older even than legend, and looks twice as old as all of them put together." This oldest living city of Varanasi has a long history in textiles. Geographically commanding a position on the national highway and situated on the Ganga, connecting all important state capitals, Varanasi rose to a status of a chief center of art, culture and education in the first millennium BC. The labyrinth of narrow lanes in Benaras is home to its age-old textile trade. It is the echoing sound of looms in these lanes that tell a visitor that he has entered the world of weaving. Here, the designs go through a meticulous journey to manifest themselves on fabrics. The inexhaustible library of motifs and designs developed over the years provides numerous choices for the designer. In reviving the old designs, the designer reproduces these traditional motifs and forms in contemporary products with new color combination. He follows the traditional grammar and syntax of the textile while conceiving new designs. In order to convert these designs into woven textile, the designer should have a thorough understanding of the weaving process. He needs to understand the possibilities and limitations of the loom, the thread that makes the cloth, and the dyes and the colors that impart hue to his creation. Once the design is made, the grapher converts it into graphs, tiling the motifs into a pattern. The graph interprets the design into the language of the loom, the warp and weft. Next in the process is perhaps the most fascinating and complex element that governs the weaving in the looms, the jacquards. The jacquards made of cardboard are a unit of information for the weaving pattern, one for each row and color. Holes are made on the cards according to the graph. These holes control the threads of warp that are lifted or depressed for weaving a pattern. The jacquards are stitched together and arranged on the loom. Each loom has a different dimension, and the size of the card must be customized to a loom. While the cards are cut and arranged on the loom, a suitable variety of silk is procured. The yarn is divided into two parts for the warp and the weft and dyed. The warp usually consists of one color, while the weft involves a combination of colors and gold threads. The dyers accomplish the color by controlling the time of exposure of the yarn into the dyes. The entire process being manual, the accuracy of color depends on the experience and skill of the dyers. The warp and weft yarn undergo different processes before uniting on the loom. After dyeing, the processing of the warp thread takes place in the open to enable the yarn to dry thoroughly. Warp is the threads running lengthwise in the fabric. Warp of the length of the fabric is stretched tightly with its ends fixed to wooden cylinders. Once appearing like a rope, now they are patiently spread and separated. For a fabric of 45 inches in width, nearly 3,000 warp threads are required. These 3,000 threads go through a final check at this stage before going on to the loom. Any breakage or defect is mended and corrected. The warp is then rolled back onto a cylinder and is ready for the loom. In the meanwhile, the weft threads have been dyed and are ready for processing. The hanks of threads require reeling and checking for its uniformity in thickness and roundness. The process requires a great amount of experience and judgment. Different colors of threads are reeled into different spools using the spinning wheel. At this stage, two or more threads are combined and twisted to make them stronger and thicker. This perhaps is the only phase where women contribute in the making of textiles, a product which caters primarily to women. The completion of the processing of threads brings us to the climax of the story, the weaving. Weaving is preceded by the meticulous process of joining every single thread of the warp to the loom. This takes 6 to 8 hours of continuous work, after which weaving begins. The weaving chambers are usually a part of a weaver's house and are generally small and dimly lit. The warp threads are stretched on the loom to a length depending upon the space available. The weaver sits on the ground with his feet in a pit dug under the loom. Weaving on these manual looms requires a practiced synchronization between hand and feet movement, which comes with experience. While the weaving is done by hand, feet control the movement of the jacquards and the lifting combination of the warp threads. The jacquards are like punch cards that contain information about how many warp threads are to be lifted for each row and color. Once the warp threads are lifted, the shuttle is passed through the weft and beaten close to the fabric with a wooden reed. This cycle creates one row of the fabric. In Varanasi, cloth is woven upside down and is constantly wound around the wooden cylinder. While weaving, the weaver regularly checks the clarity and size of the motifs and ensures neatness. From time to time, he examines the right side of the fabric with a mirror and sprinkles water on the warp to ensure elasticity and avoid breakages. The designer pays frequent visits to the weaver to ascertain that the designs manifest into cloth according to his imagination. Sometimes, minor additions and subtractions are carried out in the design. Weaving with a single shuttle is meant for simple textiles. In complex fabrics, many sets of spools carry different colors of thread. Often, two weavers work on the same cloth simultaneously, passing the spools under complicated combinations of the warp thread. This style of weaving resembles embroidery. While weaving, errors do happen and are corrected by moving jacquards backwards and undoing the weaving. 1 meter of such fabric takes about 10 days of weaving. The Buddhist fabrics used in the monasteries employ this complicated weaving process. Besides a center for sari and yardage, Varanasi over the last 100 years has emerged as a major manufacturer of the Buddhist brocades. Monasteries all over India, Tibet and abroad use these fabrics for rituals and decoration. The textiles of Varanasi have made a mark in the international market as a work of art. In Benaras, hurry and noise are replaced by the usual oriental quiet and a slow, easygoing method of procedure containing a reserve of skills and artistic workmanship. The loss of patronage and the advent of power looms is threatening the handloom industry. But constant efforts to revive carry on, providing hope to this age-old craft and thousands of weavers who have lived every single day of their lives weaving.